What's in Donald's returns? On 23 September 1952, Vice Presidential candidate Richard Nixon gave a speech laying out everything I've earned, everything I've spent, and everything I own. He concluded by challenging the Democratic candidate for president, Illinois Governor Ally Stevenson. To do the same, Governor Stevenson took the challenge one step further, releasing his personal tax returns, the clearest account of an individual income for the years. The move would not reciprocate by Nixon or his running mate for president, Dwight Eisenhower. 2 decades later, though, at the height of the Watergate scandal and unaudited by the U.S. Tax Authority, the Internal Revenue Service (IRS), then President Nixon made his tax returns public in hope of clearing the air. The move did not work, but it set a precedent for making tax filings public. It's proof you have nothing to hide, said Joe Thorndike, a tax historian and tax analyst. Donald Trump said he needs no such proof. Claiming to face his own audit, the presumptive Republican nominees have refused to release his tax return, even as public pressure mounts for him to do so. Every U.S. presidential candidate since 1977 has released their tax return, but there is no law requiring it. What's in the returns? Mr. Trump's refusal to release them has led to mounting speculations about what he could possibly be hiding. Tax returns are sort of black and white, and you sign your name to say this is accurate is not open to interpretation, said Ms. Thorndike. The first thing the public would find is what tax rate Mr. Trump paid. The candidate has bragged about paying a very low tax rate and taking advantage of the complex U.S. tax code with its many loopholes. Mr. Trump is proud to pay a lower tax rate, the lowest tax rate possible. One of his top 8 has said. An investigation by the Telegraph newspaper found Mr. Trump was involved with a deal to evade $20 million in U.S. taxes. It's possible his return may hold similar bombshells. Mr. Trump's admission that he's done his best to avoid taxes will likely make this less explosive. Net worth. One line of thinking is that the return would give a better sense of how much Mr. Trump is worth. The New York billionaires have given several different figures of his net worth, which have all been higher than estimated by finance experts and publications like Forbes magazine. But discovering whether Mr. Trump is inflating his net worth may not be as easy as some hope from his tax returns. Tax firms focus on income for a year, not total month. It may be possible to tell how much income Donald Trump made in a given year, but the complex way his company earned money will still make this difficult. U.S. real estate professionals can take tax losses based on the depreciations and other expenses from their building. This could allow Mr. Trump to report having less income and therefore place him in a lower tax bracket. Business sense. While we may not get an exact number for Mr. Trump's wealth, it is likely the returns will give a more detailed picture of his businesses. The firm will show how much profit and loss the companies he owns distribute to him in a year. It will not give a full account of the worth of those businesses because not all profits is distributed to the owner. Some is put back to grow the business, but it would give a sense of the activity. One thing a tax return would definitely show is how much Mr. Trump gives to charity. Mr. Trump claims to give millions to charitable causes and organizations. If true, his tax would prove that Americans are allowed to deduct charitable donations of over $250 from their tax bill. If the real estate mogul donates as much as he claims, it should appear on his tax deduction form. Scandal. Mr. Trump has said he will release the return after the audit, but doing so before would hurt his interaction with the IRS. A person is not prohibited from releasing their tax return during an audit President Nixon was facing an audit when he released, but many tax professionals do advise against it. Everyone is going to look at them and find something suspicious. If the statute of limitation is open, the IRS might feel pressures to do an audit, said Robert Carver from the law firm Steptoe. The IRS has 3 years in most cases to decide whether to do an audit of persons. Mr. Trump claims to have faced audits on a continuing basis for nearly a decade. But others argue Mr. Trump would have to be particularly unlucky or bad at filing his taxes to come under the IRS microscope so often. The IRS uses computer programs which score tax filings. If there are a number of unusual signals on a particular form, it is then evaluated by a person who decides whether to do an audit. Individuals who are audited are also typically given a pass in the following years if the same issues are flagged by the computer because IRS officially have already looked into them. As audits can take months and even years, Mr. Trump's tax return may not be made public until after the election, if at all. The bombastic candidate has bucked most political precedent until now, and it's possible releasing his tax return could not be yet another.